Hey, you. You're finally awake.
Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we are looking once again at the Super Nintendo, and I'm looking at some of those terrible games. Whilst there were many great games that were made for the console, there were also some absolute stinkers. So this is going to be the third time we look at terrible video games that were made for the Super Nintendo. But as always, there are going to be ones I've missed off this list. So go back, watch the other two, and let me know what games I still yet need to talk about, and put them in the comments below. As always, if you think I deserve it, please hit that like button, as well as subscribe and the notification bell to be told when new videos come out. We've also got a weekly podcast and a $1 a month Patreon, and you can see the link in the description below. Right, let's get into it, shall we? The most terrible games for the Super Nintendo, Part 3. Nickelodeon Guts. Now this looks quite fun, well the actual Nickelodeon Guts, but I'm English, we didn't have that. We had Funhouse, which is awesome. And if you're English, or British, you'll know exactly how good Funhouse was. Now on paper, this game is the ultimate dream, an extreme arena simulator where you could finally win a piece of the radical rock. In reality, it was a clunky, frustrating mess that felt more like a chore than a sport. You choose one of 8 rotoscope teenagers and complete in a series of events like slam dunk, attack and basic training, all leading up to the final climb of the aggro crag. You can play against a friend, which is the only way to stay sane, or play a season solo. In solo mode, you aren't actually racing against anyone, you're just trying to hit a point threshold to qualify for the next event. There are action events, and these are vertical platforming levels where you have to climb ropes, swing on poles and avoid obstacles, which are just usually walls that look like background art. And elastic events, where you involve being tethered to a bungee cord. You jump, fly towards a goal to score, and try to land back on your platform without face planting. While it does a job of actually looking like what it's meant to do, the actual experience of playing Guts is a masterclass in poor game design. In the elastic events, the controls are completely counterintuitive. To jump high, you have to hold down to crouch and then press jump. But, and this is what ruins friendships, if you don't hold down again as you land, your character will fall off the platform. And there's no visual feedback to tell you this, you just fall over. Again and again and again you want to smack your mate with a controller. In the climbing events, the collision detection is abysmal. You can jump directly towards a rope, but if a character's hand isn't on a very specific pixel, you're just going to fall through it. It turns a fast-paced race into a slow, cautious crawl while you're constantly fighting against the game's code. The art design, which I mentioned earlier, is a nightmare for clarity. Because the game tries to look like the TV set, the obstacles in the background look exactly the same. So you could frequently find yourself jumping towards a platform only to realise it's just decoration, or walking into a wall that you thought was a path. Playing this game in the solo mode is incredibly depressing. Since there are no AI opponents on the screen with you, you're just jumping around a silent, empty warehouse trying to hit a score. If you just miss a score by 1 point, the game just ends. No consolation prize, no thanks for playing, just game over. And the final climb is less about skill and more about whether the game decides to hit you with an avalanche. If a boulder hits you, you fall a massive distance, and because the climb mechanics are so stiff, catching up is almost impossible. It's not extreme, it's just mean. Nickelodeon Guts is a game that was sold on the vibe of being a radical 90s kid, but it was programmed with the grace of a falling piano. It's famously the subject of a legendary Game Grumps episode where the host got into a genuine screaming fight about how bad the controls were. It's a fascinating piece of history, but a terrible piece of software. Race driving. Race driving on the Super Nintendo is a lesson where the hardware just says no. This was a port of Atari's legendary arcade sequel to Hard Driving, which used revolutionary 3D polygons. Trying to run that engine on a base Super Nintendo without a specialised chip like the FX resulted in one of the most technically broken games on the library. This is a hardcore driving simulator. Unlike Mario Kart, the goal is realistic handling. You've got 3 tracks, the stunt track with loops and jumps, the autocross and the super stunt. You can choose between a speedster, a roadster, an original and a truck. Each has different handling and top speeds, though on the Super Nintendo they all feel like you're driving through incredibly crap mud. One of the few cool carryovers from the arcade was if you crash, and you will, the game will show you a 3D replay of your car tumbling and exploding from a cinematic angle. To play the game correctly, you have to manage a 4-speed gearbox. Missing a shift usually results in your engine screaming a low-bit digital screech while your car grinds to a halt. The game runs at approximately 4 to 6 frames per second. Now in a racing game where you need to make split-second steering adjustments, a frame rate that low is a death sentence. By the time the screen updates to show you a turn, you've already driven off the face of a cliff. And because the Super Nintendo is sweating just to draw the next polygon, there's a massive delay between you pressing the D-pad and the car actually turning. You have to actually predict the turns about 2 seconds before they happen. This feels like you're less driving a car and more you're trying to steer a huge ship with text messaging. The collision detection is also incredibly sensitive. If one pixel of your polygon tyre touches the grass or a pylon, the game often decides that you've crashed, leading to a 10-second unskippable replay of your car exploding. It makes even completing a single lap a Herculean task. Because the draw distance is also so low, objects and sometimes the road itself simply vanish into a grey void. You'll be driving towards a jump, and then a ramp won't actually appear until it's about 2 inches away from your face. The engine noise is also terrible. It's a constant grating drone that never changes pitch smoothly. It sounds like a buzzing fly trapped in a tin can. If you hit the red line, the noise becomes a digital siren that makes you want to mute the TV immediately. Race driving on the Super Nintendo is a tech demo that failed its audition. It's a brave attempt to bring 3D simulation to a 2D console, but the hardware simply couldn't keep up. It's widely considered to be one of the worst performing games on the system, and a game that is more interesting to talk about as a technical failure than it actually is to play. The Wizard of Oz. Developed by Seta, this is not the cozy magical journey you remember from the movie. Instead, it's a bizarre, floaty, and often terrifying action platformer that feels like a fever dream. You start off as Dorothy, but as you progress you rescue the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, the Lion, and you can switch between them at any time with their unique abilities to navigate the Land of Oz and defeat the Wicked Witch. Dorothy doesn't just walk, she has a magic wand that fires bubbles and stars. Pretty sure she couldn't do that in the film. But either way, you can upgrade your tickets and magic to change your projectiles, but the hit detection is notoriously wonky. Dorothy is the all-rounder, Scarecrow can float and use a pitchfork, Tin Man can kick and is supposedly stronger, though he just feels as fragile, and Lion has a scary roar and a claw attack. You can move through 4 main areas, the land of the Munchkins, the forest, etc., each culminating in a boss fight. In between levels there are bonus games like a board game map that determines your next power-up. The jump physics are some of the worst on the Super Nintendo. Dorothy feels like she's walking on the moon. There is almost no friction here, so when you land a jump, you frequently slide right off the edge of the platform into a pit. It feels like you're controlling a balloon rather than a person. The level design is also actively hostile. Enemies like crows with guns, yes, really, respawn almost instantly. There are traps hidden beyond foreground objects that you can't see, and the knockback from being hit often sends you flying into an instant death pit. The game makes a big deal out of rescuing your friends, but switching to them is actually a disadvantage. The Tin Man, who should be a tank, has a tiny attack range and still takes massive damage. You're going to find yourself playing as Dorothy 90% of the time because the projectile is the only way to stay safe. The game itself is long and very difficult, but instead of a save battery, it uses a cumbersome password system. If you lose lives, and you will due to the slippery platforms, you have to start the entire set of levels over unless you've written down a long string of characters. The game runs out of Oz ideas also very quickly. You'll find yourself fighting random ghosts, weird slug creatures, and floating eyeballs have nothing to do with the movie. It feels like a generic Japanese platformer that had the Wizard of Oz license slapped onto it at the last second. The Wizard of Oz is a beautiful looking disaster. It's a game that lures you in with nostalgia and great music, only to punish you with some of the most slipperiest controls in 16-bit history. It's a fascinating curiosity for fans of the movie, but as a platformer, it's a wicked experience. Ho ho! I saw you did there. Mohawk and Headphone Jack. Published by THQ late in the Super Nintendo lifecycle, the game was meant to be the console's answer to Sonic the Hedgehog. It used a massive rotation gimmick to make the entire world spin as you ran. It's a really psychedelic, disorientating nightmare though that remains one of the most polarizing games ever made and made me vomit. You play as Mohawk, a yellow creature with a mohawk who is trying to save his morphing friends and collect CDs across 14 levels. He's constantly wearing headphones, and the game's energy is entirely focused on the techno-fused soundtrack. Wow, we obviously took the 90s to a whole new level, didn't we? Gravity is completely relative. When Mohawk walks onto a wall or a ceiling, the entire screen rotates and Mohawk is always up. Mohawk can collect power-ups that turn him into different forms, like a spring, a winged creature, or a rolling ball, like Sonic. The levels are non-linear mazes. You have to find a specific number of CDs to unlock the exit, which turns the game into a scavenger hunt rather than a race. The constant, rapid 360-degree rotation of the screen is physically nauseating for the players. Because Mohawk moves quickly and the level design is full of loops and curves, the screen is in a state of near constant spinning, and it's widely cited as a Super Nintendo game most likely to cause a headache. And me vomiting. You vomiting probably watching this footage, and I'm not sorry for that. Just, I don't know, go get a drink or something. The levels are massive abstract mazes. And because the screen is constantly rotating, it's impossible to maintain a sense of direction. You don't know if you're going up or down relative to the start of the level. You're going to spend 80% of your time wandering in circles looking for one last CD while the screen spins around like a washing machine. Mohawk doesn't control well either. He's got a lot of momentum but very little weight, making it easy to overshoot platforms. When you combine slippery movement with a spinning camera, trying to land a precise jump feels like trying to thread a needle on a tilt-a-whirl. And it's a bit boring. because despite their extreme look, there isn't much combat. Most enemies are just obstacles to be avoided or jumped over. The gameplay loop of spin, get lost, find CD, spin gets repetitive in the first 10 minutes. The art style is so busy and the colours are so bright that it's hard to tell what's a platform, what's a hazard, and what's just background art. The morph items often look like random debris, making it easy to miss the power-ups you're going to need to progress, but at this point, you've probably already vomited into a bucket. Mohawk and Headphone Jack is a fascinating failure. It took a single technical gimmick and tried to build an entire game around it without considering it was actually fun to even play or look at. It's a style over substance relic of the 90s that is worth seeing just once to witness the tech, but you're likely going to want to turn it off after 5 minutes to stave your stomach. The Rocketeer. Based on the 1991 Disney film, the game is a port of an earlier PC version. It's famous, or rather infamous, for one specific reason. It forces you to complete some of the most boring, difficult, and visually confusing training levels in history before it actually even lets you get used to the jetpack. Following the plot of the movie, you play as pilot Cliff Secord. The game is essentially a collection of minigames, 2 air races, 2 shooting galleries, and a final side-scrolling fight on a Zeppelin. Even though the movie is about a guy with a rocket on his back, the Super Nintendo game forced you to win a 10-lap air race in a GB racer before you even touch the jetpack. Now, with the minigames, you've got air racing, side-view racing against 2 AI planes around pylons, the shootout, which is a first-person gallery where you shoot thugs in a hangar, the rocket flight, finally, a side-scrolling flight level where you dodge obstacles and shoot enemies, and finally the Zeppelin, a melee brawl against a villain on top of a giant blimp. Most players who own this game never even made it past the 10-minute mark, and for good reason. The opening plane race is arguably the world's worst 1-1 in gaming history. It's 10 laps of flying in a circle, the physics are stiff, and the AI opponents, red and blue, are perfect drivers. If you graze a pylon on the ground once, you'll crash and lose a life. It's tedious, punishingly long, and feels nothing like a superhero game. The racing levels themselves use a bizarre perspective. The top 80% of the screen shows a 3D view of the pylons that is completely useless for steering, and to actually win you have to stare at a tiny 2D map window at the bottom of the screen. It's like trying to drive a car while looking only at your GPS and never at the windshield. It's a guaranteed recipe for a headache. The biggest sin of the Rocketeer is that the jetpack is barely in the game. You spend more time in a cockpit or a shooting gallery than you actually do flying with the rocket. And when you finally do get to fly, the fuel gauge is so restrictive that you spend half the time falling because you run out of juice. If you somehow do survive the races and the flight levels, the final boss, the Zeppelin, is a total letdown. It's a slow, clunky melee fight where the hit detection is non-existent. You stand there just punching a guy until one of you falls over. Because this was a direct port of a PC game, it didn't feel console native. On a PC in 1991, these mini-games were actually seen as multimedia experiences. On a Super Nintendo in 1992, compared to games like Contra 3 or Super Castlevania 4, it felt like a collection of low-budget tech demos. The Rocketeer is a game of missed opportunities. It has great art and music, but buries its fun under layers of miserable plane races and confusing UI. It's a game where you have to earn the right to have fun, but by the time you reach the jetpack levels, most players have already returned the game to the rental store. Or, I don't know, burnt it. Captain Novolin. Created by Sculptured Software, it was designed specifically to teach children with type 1 diabetes how to manage their insulin and diet. While the intentions were noble, and I'll give them that, the actual game is surreal, punishing, and a terrible experience that has become a legend in this so bad it's good retro community. Aliens have kidnapped the mayor of Pineville, who also has diabetes. My god, you guys. And you play as Captain Novolin, a superhero named after a real brand of insulin. Okay, there's gotta be something there. You've got 40 hours to rescue the mayor before his insulin runs out. Jesus Christ, you're going all in on this, aren't you? The aliens have transformed into junk food. You spend the entire game dodging giants, sentient donuts, bouncing cookies, walking soda bottles, and aggressive candy bars. Before each level, a doctor tells you your prescribed diet, e.g. 2 fruits and 1 milk. You walk through the level dodging junk food and collecting the specific healthy foods you were told to eat. At the end of each stage, you have to answer multiple choice questions about diabetes management. Getting them right earns you points, and getting them wrong makes the doctor look very disappointed in you and might kill you. No, he doesn't, I'm just making that bit up. Captain Novolin is a huge sprite, taking up about a third of the screen height. His hitbox is massive. Meanwhile, the junk food enemies have erratic, bouncy movement patterns. Because Novolin moves so slowly, it's often physically impossible to dodge an enemy once it appears on screen. If you touch a piece of junk food, your blood sugar spikes, and you lose a life almost instantly. If you accidentally eat healthy food that wasn't on your list, like an extra apple, your blood sugar also goes out of whack. It's a game where the power-ups are actually traps if you're not paying attention. Swear to God, my wife would love this game. Every time I have something from the fridge, she goes, "Oh, that's not healthy," on my ass all the time. I'm surprised she hasn't got me this for Christmas. Captain Novolin walks at the pace of someone strolling through the park on a Sunday morning. There's no run button, so he's quite chill. So when a giant milkshake is hurtling towards you, the lack of speed makes the game feel like a slow-motion car crash. For some reason, developers struggled with stairs. Don't worry, Konami had that issue as well. Walking up a simple incline in this game is jittery, glitchy mess, where the captain often gets stuck or clips through the floor, leaving him vulnerable to the roving packs of cookies. I just let them have me. Come on, cookies, come get me. And while the sprites are large, the backgrounds are incredibly repetitive and bland. Most levels look like the same 3 trees and sidewalks repeated forever. It feels less like a superhero world and more like a poorly funded park. Captain Novolin is a fascinating relic. It's a game that was never meant to be fun in traditional sense, it was meant to be a medical textbook with a D-pad. However, its combination of crushing difficulty, weird enemies and the sheer oddity of its premise has made it a cult classic for collectors of the strange. And finally, Rex Ronan, Experimental Surgeon. Another entry in the educational library from Sculptured Software, this game trades diabetes management for an aggressive microscopic war against the tobacco industry. I'm surprised this game even came out then. It's a bizarre action game where you shrink down to a subatomic level to perform surgery on a man's lungs, but it plays like a feverish anti-smoking PSA designed by someone who'd just seen inner space. Jake Westboro is a billionaire tobacco executive who is dying from his own product. Well, fuck him! Fuck him! You play as Rex Ronan, a world-class experimental surgeon who shrinks himself down and enters Jake's body to physically scrub away the damage caused by smoking. That's not how it works! That shit is not how you fix lungs. Sorry. Just putting it out there. My mum smokes like 40 a day. Swear to God, it'll be like a dying Voldemort from Harry Potter when she dies. I love her to pieces, but it's not going to be pretty, the amount she smokes, and you can't just go in and scrub them. It's not how that shit works. And Rex is armed with laser scalpel and atomizer. Your goal is to navigate through Jake's teeth, lungs and heart to destroy the nicotine demons, tar globs and the precancerous cells. Jesus Christ, maybe that's what science is leading to? I don't know. The game is split between flight sections, so flying your ship through the body, and platforming sections, Rex walking around inside organs. You aren't just fighting biology though. The tobacco company has sent tiny microbots into Jake's body to sabotage your surgery so he can't testify against them. Brilliant. I don't even know why that's in the list. That should make it off the list immediately. How's that happened? How has the surgeon been able to get himself so small, but the tobacco industry are like, and quick. God, while he's in there, quick, get some little bastards in there. No, not having it. Walking through Jake's lungs is a nightmare. Well, yeah, it would be. The tar on the floor acts as a sticky trap that slows Rex down to a crawl. In a game where enemies are flying at you from all angles, being stuck in lung goo is a frustrating way to lose health. Your laser scalpel is a very strange hitbox. You'll be standing right in front of a nicotine monster, firing your laser, only for the shots to pass right through it. Meanwhile, the enemy's projectiles seem to have homing capabilities. Inside a human body, everything is either pink, red or grey. The levels are incredibly cluttered with biological detail that makes it hard to distinguish between a platform and what's actually the background element, and that's what's going to kill you. You frequently jump into what you think is a ledge, only to fall into a stomach acid pit. Every few minutes, the game stops to give you a lecture. Well, that's like life. While the anti-smoking message is obviously good, the way it's delivered is incredibly clunky. The microbots literally scream things at you about how tobacco is cool, and Rex shouts back about a pulmonary emphysema. I had to record this several times. I hope you all appreciate how many times the crap I have to go through to give you this. Thank you everyone for listening, but still. Seashells by the seashore. That's the sort of stuff I have to practice. My God. Now for a game aimed at kids, Rex Ronan is brutally hard, and so's the script. The flight sections involve narrow corridors where one bump against the wall takes a chunk of your health. By the time you reach the later stages, the screen is so full of tar and robots that finishing the surgery feels statistically impossible, because it shouldn't work. Don't come up with realism and it's a video game, I don't care. Rex Ronan Experimental Surgeon is a fascinating piece of 16-bit propaganda. It's better than Captain Novolin in terms of gameplay variety, but it's just as clunky and frustrating to actually control. It remains a legendary example of educational entertainment, shut up, gone wild in a game that tries to make healthcare extreme and ends up being a headache. Swear to God, this will be something Donald Trump will come in and go, I got the best surgeon, I've got cancer, don't worry, I got the best surgeon, Rex Ronan's going in, he's gonna fix it all, Elon got him from somewhere, I don't know what he did, he's the best guy, and he's gonna fix it all. It's a terrible Donald Trump impression, I know, but you just imagine that'd be the sort of stuff he'd come out with, and I'd be all for it, because that'd be hilarious. And that is the end of the video. As I said, let me know if there's ones I've missed, and if you have enjoyed it, please hit that like button, it helps the channel grow, and I'll see you all in a few days from the video. You all take care of yourself. My name's been Danny. Bye bye.